The first testimony of House Orlock does not emerge from proclamation or charter, but from the reverberations of hammers striking bone-dry slag deeper than daylight ever reaches. It is said that when the ancestors of Orlock carved the first corridors into the crust of Necromunda, they did so with iron stolen from the teeth of the world itself. They were not nobles, nor sanctioned workers under the Emperor's scroll. They were claimless delvers, survivors, renegades, indentured scavengers of failed terraformation protocols. Their legitimacy was not ordained, it was enforced. Beneath the basal levels of Hive Primus, where millennia of industry had compacted the dead into sediment, there rose the clamour of desperate innovation. The mines beneath the proto-hive had once belonged to the Mechanicum during the early colonization, forgotten as the Forge world's attentions turned inward and upward. These relic veins, now stripped and chaotic, became the crucible in which House Orlock was forged, not by bloodlines, but by tools. The House of Iron does not trace its lineage through a noble primogenitor or a sainted warlord, as others do. There is no great founding battle, no sigil-bearing matriarch, no pact struck with the High Lords of Terror. There is only the memory of flame against skin, of rock drills stuttering through collapsed corridors, and of generations surviving long enough to teach their young not how to pray, but how to weld. Their claim over the Ironhead deeps was not recognized until their extraction yields surpassed the quotas of House Grime, who once leased the region to Forgekin under ancient guild license. By then, it was too late. Iron fed the hive, and Orlock fed the iron. Their formal recognition came not with fanfare, but with delegation. Representatives from the Helmauer regime and the Iron Guild arriving in thick-plate hazard suits to negotiate rather than eradicate. The convoys of scrap and salvage Orlock pushed up through the lift shafts kept the great foundries alight. And though their dialect was coarse, their banners crude, and their customs rough-edged by ash and fumes, they were granted their house status, less as a reward than an inevitability. Without them, Hive Primus stalled. With them, it ground forward, ironclad. Their domains sprawled across the eastern industrial mantles of Hive Primus, from the chokeways of Ironhold to the blasted reaches of the ash wastes, where their slag haulers and crawler convoys carved rust-veined arteries between shattered domes. It is there, in the wastes, that Orlock's real empire was born, not in the depths of Hive, but in its margins. They became not just masters of iron, but kings of motion. Their monopoly over convoy security, reclamation rights, and slag field maintenance grew alongside their burgeoning wild snake distilleries and ash recycling outposts. They spoke in road slang, a gang-born patois of trade glyphs, hand signs, code clatters, and engine growls. To know it was to move unmolested across the wastelands. To mistake it was to vanish amid the dunes. Yet for all their mechanical mastery, Orlock was never a house of perfection. They do not breed scholars, nor psychers, nor high artists. They produce chain binders, gearsmiths, bullet pressers, hauler pilots, and gangers. Their strength lies not in vision, but in permanence. Theirs is a stubborn genius, a refusal to die, a will to function. And in the Imperium, there is no virtue more holy. House Orlock's genesis reveals the deeply cyclical economy of Necromunda. Even the tools of decay are recast as engines of continuity. Unlike the aristocratic Escher or the pharmacological Van Saar, Orlock emerges from the waste pile and returns to it, thriving in entropy as if it were oxygen. Their rise is a living testament to the Imperium's most tragic contradiction, that it needs its underclass to endure, yet will never sanctify them. Orlock does not ascend, it deepens. Every year, the house becomes more integrated into Necromunda's respiratory system, not rising toward the spire, but anchoring the hive's digestive core. Where other houses rot from the top, Orlock rusts from within. This is not weakness. This is empire. And yet, the deeper reflection lies not in their origin, but in what that origin teaches us. If an entire society can build itself from scrap, how does the Imperium still justify the chains it welds onto its lowest castes? Orlock gangers carry the answer without realizing it. Survival is defiance. They do not speak of revolution because their existence is already won. The road never ends. It only buckles, turns, and breaks. Orlock rides it still. The bitterness that haunts the sinews of House Orlock was never grown within. It was planted in the soot between trades, in the acid-stained paper of a ruined contract, in the silence that followed the fall of Lord Hagan Orlock's still-beating heart to a delicate blade. That silence has not ended. This chapter of Orlock's chronicle begins not with industry, but with sabotage. The Forge clans of Delac had for cycles maintained a lucrative manufacturing pact with House Ulanti, a noble lineage steeped in the politics of the Spire and the cut-glass traditions of old Necromunda. The deal was delicate, shrouded in veils of data smoke and servitor ciphers. Orlock, rough-handed and inelegant in diplomacy, saw only that Ulanti required steel, and that Orlock had more than Delac. The exact act of sabotage remains obscured, details devoured by House Delac's deliberate disinformation. But the outcome was catastrophic. Delac's forge chains seized, their data streams jammed, their contract severed. Within 2 rotations, House Ulanti placed full requisition orders with House Orlock's refineries. What was once a quiet rivalry flared into vendetta. And in response, Delac did not march. They whispered. They seeded rumours in Orlock ranks, falsified maintenance requests that led to catastrophic meltdowns in microfoundries, and poisoned trade routes in the wastes so subtly that entire convoys vanished beneath the sands, mistaken for rogue ash storms or mutant raids. Then came the blade. Lord Hagan Orlock, patriarch, convoy master, symbol of the house's rising fortune, was struck down by a ghost assassin in his own chamber. No alarms, no footprints, no remains. Only the blood and a mark left behind, a sigil composed of data fragments too corrupted to read. But Orlock understood. There is only one house that kills like wind through a vent. Since that moment, Delac and Orlock have lived in what can only be called perpetual subversion. They do not war openly. Necromunda's higher echelons forbid it. But they poison the margins. Where Delac infiltrates a security node, Orlock rigs a refinery to detonate under a Delac agent's skiff. Where Delac buys loyalty with secrets, Orlock crushes bones in alley judgments, declaring loyalty in the smoke of cremators. This is not just hatred, this is doctrinal opposition. Delac thrives in absence, secrecy, data leverage, espionage. Orlock exalts presence, weight, structure, motion. For Orlock, a vehicle must move or be scrapped. For Delac, a vehicle must never be seen at all. This doctrinal conflict manifests even in their aesthetics. Orlocks wear their gang allegiance like tattoos in rust, shoulder-mounted bullet belts, scav-slagged goggles, and leathers stained in the hue of blood, long since baked dry. Delac gangers are cloaked, faceless, their every movement the echo of some unseen manipulation. It is no surprise that peace is impossible. What diplomacy exists between shadow and iron? And yet, even amid this Cold War, Orlock finds uneasy accord with House Escher. The reasons are ancient and many-layered. Where Escher is matriarchal, Orlock is oddly egalitarian, at least by Necromundan standards. Women hold full rank in Orlock gangs, lead convoys, pilot rigs, and command battalions of ash haulers. There are no gilded thrones or hormonal conditioning chambers, no vat-bred gender engineering. There is only labour and loyalty. In this brutal simplicity, Escher sees something close to respect. There is even shared ritual. Orlock gangers, when negotiating with Escher counterparts, will often abstain from Wildsnake for one day, honouring an old road debt codified in flame and blood during the so-called Steel Mother Accord, an event now commemorated in every Hive cycle among those who remember the old names. It is this rare axis of cooperation that defines the larger constellation of Orlock's place within the Hive, at once respected and distrusted, durable and despised. Neither Hive noble nor pure mercenary, House Orlock occupies that most precarious of Necromundan realities, functionally necessary, politically expendable. And so their wars continue, not in declarations, but in derailments, rigjackings, whispered bribes, and the silent disappearance of supply lines. To live as an Orlock is to feel the weight of invisible knives brushing one's back every cycle. The assassination of Lord Hagan Orlock marks a spiritual wound in the house's collective psyche. Not only was he a symbolic leader, he represented the idea that House Orlock could rise, through grit and supply chain superiority, into the upper echelons of Hive society. Delac's blade was not just vengeance, it was a message. Stay in the dirt, stay in the dark. There are unverified claims, particularly among esoteric guild scribes, that Delac's sabotage of the Orlock-Delac-Yulanti triangle was authorized by House Helmar itself. These suggest that Helmar desired a permanent balance of desperation among the lower houses, a form of controlled entropy to ensure no clan gained too much dominance outside the Spire's control. Whether true or myth, this theory reflects a deeper truth. The Hive's equilibrium is not built on peace, but on the slow churn of vendetta. There are no innocents in Hive Primus, only actors and objects. What does this tell us about the Imperium at large? The Orlock-Delac rivalry is a parable in miniature. A system that requires endless sacrifice must pit its components against each other to maintain motion. Like pistons grinding within a broken engine, their friction is mistaken for power. But the engine is collapsing. And Orlock, whether as martyr or survivor, will ride its final crash with engine roaring and chain axe drawn. To speak of House Orlock is to speak of the road, not the paved boulevards of noble transit or the data-etched corridors of the Spire, but the true arteries of Necromunda, the slag hauler routes, the dust-scoured trade veins, the rusting rail bridges suspended over ravines of post-human decay. These are not roads as civility understands them. They are the fossilized footprints of industry, stained with blood and alkali, cursed by the gods of entropy and sanctified only by survival. And yet, to Orlock, they are home. Once iron wrenched from the Hive was their fortune. Now iron in motion is their soul. The convoys of House Orlock stretch farther than any other clan dares to imagine. While Goliath rules its gymnasium forges and Van Saar coddles its reactors like pale infants, Orlock sends its iron beasts into the ash wastes, into dust storms that scour skin from bone, into valleys where the only law is inertia, and into trade meets so hostile that a handshake is more likely to draw blood than a deal. Each rig is a sanctum, each driver, a war priest of motion. Each route is a pilgrimage across a dead world that still hungers. The Ash Wastes mandate, not a document but a doctrine, emerged from necessity, ossified into dogma by cycles of danger and conquest. It is not codified in a hall of records, but in the tire burn on blackened ground, in the glyphs etched into hauler hulls, and in the unspoken law passed from ganger to rig chieftain. The road exists for those who keep it open. And House Orlock keeps it open with flame, grit, and chainblade. Their dominance in the wastes is not total. It is contested daily by ash mutants, nomadic outclanners, rogue guilder bands, sandstalkers, and worse. But unlike Van Saar, who deploy drones, or Delac, who send whispers, Orlock meets challenge with movement. Their response is convoys. Their diplomacy is escort contracts sealed with engine oil and oaths cut into dashboard shrines. Their theology is talk. Every hauler carries relics, metallic fragments of older machines, sometimes thousands of years dead, bound into the cockpit like spirit fetishes. Some convoys believe these machine ghosts sing during storms, others claim they grow warm before betrayal. There is no empirical proof. But no Orlock hauler captain would ride without one. Rigs themselves are more than vehicles. They are rolling fortresses, families, temples, and execution chambers. Some are equipped with slave rigs for scaver tribes, others bristle with plasma flares and autogun nests scavenged from Mechanicus ruins. At least one convoy, known only in road slang as the Blood Wheel, is said to run a slave dueling arena atop its roof, fought mid-transit on a spinning disc of death. Orlock does not flinch at brutality. It simply compartmentalizes it. Their routes are mapped not with logic, but memory. No official charts mark the hell run across the dust spine or the flicker cut near Radfield 9. Only Orlock knows them. Only Orlock can use them. These paths, carved through force and flame, grant the house an irreplaceable strategic advantage. They are not merely transporters, they are interstitial lords, the glue of Underhive civilization. Even the guilders, for all their wealth and sanction, rely on Orlock to survive. It is Orlock haulers who bring flamer fuel to Escher Biolabs. Orlock gangers who brave stormfronts to deliver power cells to Van Saar silos. Orlock outriders who maintain the storm beacons that guide the Gilder Zeppelins across the toxic firmament. Without Orlock, the Hive does not starve, it stutters. And in the stutter, the void waits. The Ash Waste's supremacy of House Orlock raises difficult questions. How did a house of industrialists, never famed for psychic talent or strategic genius, become the beating heart of Necromunda's wasteland logistics? The answer lies in necessity, not vision. When other houses warred over resource nodes within Hive Primus, Orlock looked outward. This outward gaze may be rooted in the Iron Scour doctrine, a lost philosophy believed to have been developed after the Great Tunnel collapse nearly 3 centuries ago, when 3,000 Orlock workers were entombed under 12,000 tons of hivecrete. Their death severed a vital vein of scrap metal supply and forced Orlock to pivot toward mobile reclamation. While official texts deny the doctrine's existence, it is whispered of in convoy cant, Iron Scour first, Hive last, etched into prayer chains and cogwheel rosaries. This would explain Orlock's aggressive expansionism in the wastes, not as ambition, but as ideological survivalism. Some rogue scribes of House Grime even suggest that Orlock intends to create an exohive, a mobile dominion independent of Helmar's tether, a sprawling caravan city that answers only to its fuel tanks and gun racks. If true, it would be unprecedented. But nothing in Necromunda is ever truly free. What vision of the Imperium is offered by Orlock's roads? It is not one of glory or piety. It is movement amid decay, function amid entropy. In a galaxy of stagnation, Orlock dares to move, not upward, but outward. Their faith is not in gods, nor in gene seed purity, but in machinery, muscle, and motion. In this, they are perhaps the most imperial of all. For is not the Imperium itself a great decaying convoy, shuddering forward on engines no one remembers how to build, bound together by loyalty, hatred, oil, and fire? And if it is, then Orlock does not merely survive in it. They understand it. A thing born in iron must die in rust. That is the creed unspoken among Orlock ranks, more binding than any oath sworn to the Helmauer regime or its guild proxies. In the gloom-choked dome chapels and rattling hauler barracks of House Orlock, faith is not found in saints or in shrines. It is found in function, the bolt that holds under stress, the engine that turns after the fire, the hand that lifts the fallen without question. But beneath the steel skin, something darker pulses. For while Orlock wears the mask of the honest labourer, of the noble convict king, of the righteous convoyer keeping the hive alive, it remains, like all of Necromunda, a creature of decay. Its rituals are no less tainted than those of Escher's chem saints or Delac's whisper priests. Its bloodlines are no less bound in secrecy, its loyalty no less bought with sin. House Orlock calls itself clanic, not noble, not genetic. It builds itself through loyalty, action, and adoption. The gangers who fight beside one another in the ash wastes today may bear no ancestral tie, but in fire they are brothers, in oil they are sisters. A house of many mothers, many fathers, no pure line. But this egalitarian facade conceals chains more subtle than serfdom. Beneath the surface of every Orlock dome lies a structure as rigid as any noble hierarchy. At the top of the pyramid sit the Hauler families, generational convoy dynasties whose names are etched into the very steel of Hive Ganglor, Ruston, Moltek, Holt Crane, and the blood-soaked Ferox line. These names are not spoken lightly. A ganger may rise through grit, yes, but not beyond the long shadow of these dynasties. Every road tithe, every salvage share, every bolt shell round pulled from the wastes carries a cost. The Hauler Kings do not demand genuflection, they demand function. Fail in this, and your name is deleted from the rune log. Your corpse is left unburned. This is the quiet tyranny of Orlock. And then, there is the wild snake. It is more than drink, more than trade good. It is ritual, weapon, and inheritance. Distilled from the venom glands of the Necromundan death adder, cut with alkali seepage and rustroot fungi, it is said that the strongest wild snake batches taste of memory, pain, and machine oil. Every hauler run ends with a wild snake communion. Every funeral begins with one. The oldest among Orlock's gangers whisper of the iron coil, a mythic tradition that states that each drop of wild snake consumed carries the echoes of every hauler who ever bled for the house. They speak not of spirits, but of psychic resonance, the unacknowledged warp gift of the ash-ridden, channeled not through witchcraft, but through pain and purpose. Whether this is true or not, the ritual holds. They drink, they remember, they endure. And what of corruption? It is not alien, it is expected. The roads demand tribute, and those who traverse them must pay, sometimes with bodies, sometimes with silence. House Orlock traffics in more than scrap. Entire sectors in the deep Underhive owe their narcotic supply chains to rogue Orlock captains. Some wild snake distilleries operate as fronts for trade in stims, Xenos carcass matter, and even outlawed archaeotech. Convoys occasionally vanish, only to return weeks later with unknown crates, escorted by two silent gangers with ash-slicked eyes and servo-scorched skin. There are whispers of a gang clan called the Binders of Taros, operating on the edge of Orlock legitimacy, who engage in organ trade under the cover of supply reclamation. The Hauler families deny it. The Guilders accept the tribute. The Spire does not ask questions, as long as the iron flows. The corrupted sanctity of House Orlock represents one of Necromunda's most profound tragedies, the impossibility of virtue within a closed system of decay. Even when a house begins with resilience and brotherhood, it must, inevitably, adapt to the rot or perish. Orlock's unique horror is not its violence, but its necessity. It must run the roads, it must hold the wastes, and to do so, it must stain its hands. This is not hypocrisy, this is empire in miniature. And so we return to the notion of family. Orlock's bonds are real, but transactional. Loyalty is measured in what you can carry, shoot, weld, or bleed. Failure is not weakness, it is erasure. The iron coil of wild snake may be myth, but the lesson it imparts is true. Every drop carries memory. And if that memory is laced with blood and betrayal, it is only because the road demands it. In the silence between convoys, when the engines cool and the smoke settles, a question lingers like soot in the lungs. What is left of honor when survival is worshipped above all else? For House Orlock, the answer has never changed. They do not seek redemption. They do not chase purity. They keep the road alive. And in doing so, they carry the Imperium, not with pride, but with chains. And when the last bolt is fired and the last rig collapses into rust, they will still be there, waiting for the next load.